Hey everybody, welcome back to another film of the week. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Just in the midst of doing some things, just going to pick up my brother from school. And I figured as we're getting to his school, I figured just do some videos just because I'm just kind of lacking a little bit on content lately. It's just not been really into doing content lately. I don't know, just been kind of fatigued, so just been taking it easy. So if you notice just like a day or two where there might be no content to speak of, just just kind of taking it easy. Also with work and other things, so just trying to space out some time for myself, not feeling the need to like do anything, but I figured to talk about I guess you could say like a follow-up of sorts to the last one, because we did Manchester by the Sea last week, which I adore. I love that movie so much. I figured to discuss another Casey Affleck type film because it's been on my mind for a few days now. That film being A Ghost Story, which was written and directed by David Lowery, who would go on to do notable A24 film in The Green Knight, which I thought was pretty good. He'd also do a couple films with Disney, specifically Pete's Dragon, which is probably one of the better adaptations from Disney, live action adaptations. Peter Pan and Wendy, I've heard the opposite on, and not being so great. But A Ghost Story stars Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara as a couple, and they live in a house together, and they were woken up one night by some odd noises, and they, chalk it up as nothing really. And we cut to Casey Affleck, unfortunately passing in a car accident, and Rooney Mara now mourning his death. And through this, Casey Affleck's spirit, in the shape of your typical looking ghost with a blanket over, and the whole black eyes sort of deal, watches Rooney Mara, or at least goes to the house and views Rooney Mara through time, and just generationally speaking throughout the house, and ultimately getting stuck within in a bubble, in a time, and having to wrestle with ideas of grief and about loss, and ultimately what it means to move forward in one's life. Seeking that validation, seeking that closure, and portraying that through two different points of time, through the real world, and that through the spiritual realm, through Casey Affleck's point of view in the spiritual realm, and Rooney Mara's in the real world, as well as other people that also illustrate the same points that are being told in the film. So it's kind of a polarizing film because on one level, I think aesthetically it is quite nice. It's very tempered. It's not like booming with colors, and it's not completely devoid of it either. It has this nice middle ground to where it has a natural lighting to it. Everything just feels, there is an obvious tint to the frame, but it also has, it doesn't feel like it's completely filtered, where everything has a certain flair to it. It all feels pretty natural in design. For another, I would say tonally it also is pretty tempered. It has this it has an edge to it that is very soft, and obviously very heavy on its meditative qualities, and there's a boldness in the filmmaking, in that the framing, the lingering sensibilities are quite dominant in this film. So there's a lot of times in the film where shots linger for quite a bit of time. We're discussing maybe like a 3 or 4 minute shot of perhaps nothing happening, or something is happening, and it's, because filmmakers tend to stretch out shots, they're like trying to illustrate a certain point, maybe a point on realism, or a deeper understanding to its themes, or perhaps taking in the moment itself, like just the literal definition of stretching out a shot, of just trying to present a moment through that one shot. And in the case of a ghost story, it's more literal, and I think that the literal technicalities, and unfortunately the literal metaphors at play here, I think undermine a bit of the weightfulness of the film, because what your impression of the film is when you watch it is pretty much what it is. There is nothing more to the film than about grief, and about our paths of moving on, and that the different points of viewing of illustrating that specific message. It's pretty cut and dry, and once you get that idea, the metaphors themselves don't necessarily add weight to the film, as it does just kind of package, like kind of pads the ideas out more. And the weird thing about it is that the metaphors themselves at times are interesting. Like the one metaphor that I like, even though it is pretty on the nose, is when Rooney Mara eats a chocolate cake. There's this long shot, I think it's like a good 5 minutes, of her just sitting down and eating a chocolate cake, and it's pretty blatant as to what's being addressed there about, one trying to stuff their feelings, trying to not take on the emotions that are buried within, and eventually those emotions come up to the surface, and in the case of Rooney Mara's in that scene, it's throwing up. So it's pretty on the nose, and I can't say it's like the thing about a ghost story is this, like conceptually it's interesting, when it's pitched to you by a dialogue, which in the ghost story it's pretty minimal for quite a bit of its time. There is some dialogue that plays like with the spirits, but there's no actual actual dialogue that plays. At points there is with the actual characters, with the actual human beings. There are people that eventually engage with one another, but it's for the most part pretty quiet. But within such quietness, it's also extremely knowing, and it is an unfortunate thing that a ghost story bears, is that it does sit in that standardness pretty often, and doesn't really look for ways to really enhance and really deepen its overall idea. It just really likes to hang on the surface quite a bit, but the approaches, the overall technicalities, like the literal what is being shown, is interesting, and the overall aura of a ghost story is rather tasteful. But I wish that it had more underneath than just hanging on the surface and just being okay with being there for a bunch of its time, because it has that potential to be more, and to be more resonant as a result, because there is a distance that is built within that knowledge, that knowing of what is in a ghost story, what it's about, and overall developments and overall performances don't seem as earnest, or seem as they just seem more like elements at play. But I can't sit here and say that I hate it, though. Like, it's a weird feeling coming out of a ghost story, like it's one of those types of films where you watch it, and like I said, the word is polarizing, because on one hand you have aesthetics, you have a pitch, you have a tone, you have components there that do bear a strong that promote a strong response. But then you have other components, which are the obvious metaphors, the lingering sensibilities, which I appreciate to some extent, but then at other times can test you. Um, and performances that are, they're not bad, but they just don't feel like they are needed. Like they just seem just like things just to get us to move through the story. Elements, just items, not necessarily like people. So it's a very mixed bag. I would lean more towards the positives because I just like how I feel thinking of select ideas or select concepts or select components from a ghost story, and then I'm reminded of the stuff that I don't like about it. So, but it's hard to say ultimately like where I stand on it. But I think that for now I say that it's good, but it's definitely I definitely see why people have mixed thoughts on it, because there are good things in it, and then there are like it has shades of both goodness and of redundance and overall just surface level like quality, so I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great either. I'm just gonna say that it's okay. Like that's the way I'll put it. But it definitely could have been better if it just had more of a depth, and had more of a just an overall better approach to its metaphors and its meanings. Because as it stands, it just feels it's so blatant and so obvious, and I wish that wasn't the overall perspective that you get out of a ghost story. I wish that there was that. It does want to be like an Odyssey, and within Odysseys, I kind of wish that there was that that ambiguity, and a ghost story just doesn't have that. It thinks that it does, but it really doesn't. So, and that's the downfall of a ghost story, unfortunately. So, but yeah. So those are my thoughts on a ghost story. I thought it was okay. Interesting film, I will say. I think I'll say this: the fact that a guy wearing a giant blanket with two holes, like the fact that I can take that seriously and not be laughing at some dude standing in a corner with a giant blanket on, there's some merit there. But I can't sit here and say though that I am completely like moved, as I am just more like so yeah, so those are my thoughts. But you guys know your thoughts on the ghost story. Did you guys like it? Did you guys not like it? Between the two films, obviously Manchester by the Sea beats it. But you guys know your thoughts on the ghost story in the comment section below, and of course your thoughts on David Lowery if you guys have seen any of his other work. I think The Green Knight is just a better film, comparatively speaking. But you guys know your thoughts, all things ghost story, David Lowery, in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.